Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmadhyasya yatam vayaritartacchate swavigyaswara. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Mojanti Jasuraya. Tejo Vritam Idam Tejo Vritam Yadam Yadas Tejo Valam Idam Yata Vinimayo Jatra Trisagum Risya Namna Svena Sada Nirahastak Mahakam Satyang Param Dimayi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
All-pervading personality of Godhead.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
Is he directly and indirectly conscious for all manifestations?
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there is no other cause behind him.
Is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji?
Is he only who first imparted Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji?
The original living entity.
The original living being.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations
As one is bewildered by the illusory representation
of water seen in fire or land seen on water.
of water seen in fire, land seen in water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him do the material universe
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of
appear factual although they are unreal.
appear factual, although they are unreal.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
with eternal existence in the transcendental,
which is forever free from the illusory representations in the material world.
which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material world.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma Pujita Kaitravutra
Dharma Prujita Kaitavutra
Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam.
Paramo Nirmasaranam Satam.
Get my Bhagavad Gita. It's in my room on the left-hand side. Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu
Vidyam Vastavam Astra Vastu
Shivadam Tapa Trayon Mulanam
Shivadam Taputrayamanam
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni
Kimva Purer Ishwaraha Sadyo Hridi Avarudyate Tra
Sadhurudya Varidyatita
Kriti Bihi Susu Subhistakshana.
Kriti Shubhistat
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
completely rejecting all religious activities from material world.
This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth,
The Bhagavad Puran propounds the highest truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully
The
pure in
highest
heart.
truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The reality distinguished from illusion.
Such truth uproots the threefold mysteries.
Such a truth uproots threefold
This
mysteries.
beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity,
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled with the great sage Vasudeva
is sufficient in itself for God realization.
It's sufficient itself for God.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of knowledge,
by this culture of
the
knowledge,
Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme is established within his heart.
Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam
Nikama kalpataror galitam phalam,
sukhamukad amrita dravya samyatam
Sukam bhadam rita travasang
pibata bhagavatam rasam malayam
Bhagavatam rasamlayam,
muhur ahoraska bhuvibhavakaha.
Muhur ahura sika bhuvibhavaka.
Thank you very much. O expert and thoughtful man,
O expert and thoughtful,
relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired true Vedic literatures.
mature fruit of desire truth.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this food has become even more
Although its
tasteful.
nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
Although his nectarian juice was relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna,
Samvatam Sakata Krishna,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Hiryantaksto Hi Bhadrani,
Vidyantastu Yabha,
Vidunati Srihitsatam.
Vidunati Srisatam.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
Hear about Vedurus,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad
is
Gita.
itself righteous activity.
It's a right.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And when he hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within him,
acts as a best-wishing friend
acts as the best wishing
and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
and purifies the voice who constantly engage in hearing.
Nastapresu Bhadresu
Nasta Praishwa Bhadrishu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Ityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttamasloke
Bhagavati Uttamasloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki.
Bhakti Bhavati Nasti.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Tadarajastamo bhava
Rajastamo Bhava
kamaloba dayaschaye
Kamalo Hadayas
cheta etairanavidam
Chete Itarana Vidam
stitvam sattve prasidati.
Sitam Sattve Prasidati.
By development of devotional service,
By development of devotional
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes free from the modes of passion,
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
and this material loss and
Evam prasana manaso
Vam Prasana Manasu
bhagavad bhakti yogataha
Bhakti Yoga
bhagavad tattva vijnanam
Tattva Vidya.
mukta sangasya jayate. When these impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are wiped
the
away,
candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
the candidate remains steady with his position,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the science of God.
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
Vidyate Hridaya Granti,
chidyante sarvasamsaya,
Vidyante Sarvasam,
siyante chasya karmani,
Vidyante Chasakarma,
justa evat manishvare.
Drusta Eva Manishwari.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection,
That's the Bhakti Yoga serves the heart of the material
enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram,
and enables one to come at once to the stage of a Samshayam Samagram,
understanding of the supreme absolute truth personality of Godhead.
understanding the supreme absolute truth personality of Godhead.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna, from Krishna consciousness,
can one understand the science of Krishna.
can one understand the science of Krishna.
Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, text number 12. Kim pramatasya bahubhi parokshar hayanir iha varamuhurtam viditam gatate shreyase yata. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. What is the value of a prolonged life which is wasted, inexperienced by years in this world? Better a moment of full consciousness, because that gives one a start in searching after his supreme interest. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Sukadeva Goswami instructed Maharaj Parikshit about the importance of the chanting of the holy name of the Lord by every progressive gentleman in order to encourage the king, who had only 7 remaining days of life. Srila Sukadeva Goswami asserted that there is no use in living hundreds of years without any knowledge of the problems of life. Better to live for a moment with full consciousness of the supreme interest to be fulfilled. The supreme interest of life is eternal, with full knowledge and bliss. Those who are bewildered by the external features of the material world and are engaged in the animal propensities of the eat, drink, and be merry type of life are simply wasting their lives by the unseen passing of valuable years. we should know in perfect consciousness that human life is bestowed upon the conditioned soul to achieve spiritual success, and the easiest possible procedure to attain this end is to chant the holy name of the Lord. In the previous verse, we have discussed this point to a certain extent, and we may further be enlightened on the different types of offenses committed unto the feet of the holy name. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhu has quoted many passages from authentic scriptures and has ably supported the statements in the matter of offenses at the feet of the holy name. From Vishnu Yamala Tantra, Srila Jiva Goswami has proven that one can be liberated from the effects of all sins simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Quoting from the Markandeya Purana, Sri Goswamiji says that one should neither blaspheme the devotee of the Lord nor indulge in hearing others who are engaged in belittling a devotee of the Lord. A devotee should try to restrict the vilifier by cutting out his tongue, and being unable to do so, one should commit suicide rather than hear the blaspheming of the devotee of the Lord. The conclusion is that one should neither hear nor allow vilification of a devotee of the Lord, as far as distinguishing the Lord's holy name from the names of the demigods. The revealed scriptures disclose, Bhagavad Gita 10:41, that all extraordinarily powerful beings are but parts and parcels of the supreme energetic Lord Krishna. Except for the Lord himself, everyone is subordinate. No one is independent of the Lord. Since no one is more powerful than or equal to the energy of the Supreme Lord, no one's name can be as powerful as that of the Lord. By chanting the Lord's holy name, one can derive all stipulated energy synchronized from all sources. Therefore, one should not equalize the supreme holy name of the Lord with any other name. Brahma, Shiva, or any other powerful god can never be equal to the supreme Lord Vishnu. The powerful holy name of the Lord can certainly deliver one from sinful effects, but one who desires to utilize this transcendental potency of the holy name of the Lord in one's sinister activities is the most degraded person in the world. Such persons are never excused by the Lord or by any agent of the Lord. One should therefore utilize one's life in glorifying the Lord by all means, without any offense. Such activity of life, even for a moment, is never to be compared with a prolonged life of ignorance, like the lives of the tree and other living entities who may live for thousands of years without prosecuting spiritual advancement. And again, this verse, what is the value of a prolonged life which is wasted, inexperienced by years in this world? Better a moment of full consciousness, because that gives one a start in searching after his supreme interest. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, Prabhupada mentions this verse 10:41. Let's take a look at what he says there. Yad yad vibhutimat sattvam Srimad urjitam evava tattad eva gachatvam mama tejo misha sambhavam. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. And Prabhupada explains in the purport, any glorious or beautiful existence should be understood to be but a fragmental manifestation of Krishna's opulence, whether it be in spiritual or material world. Anything extraordinarily opulent should be considered to represent Krishna's opulence. So this obviously is the fact that Krishna has 6 opulences in full: riches, fame, beauty, power, knowledge, and renunciation. So it's not surprising that since he has all these 6 opulences in full, including riches and beauty, so any glorious or beautiful existence should be understood to be but a fragmental manifestation of Krishna's opulence, whether it be in spiritual or material world. Anything extraordinarily opulent should be considered to represent Krishna's opulence. So, to understand the unique position of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and no one is equal to or greater than him, that takes some time to understand, because we've been duped into thinking that this person is great, or that demigod is great, or I am great, and to be reluctant to accept that Krishna possesses all opulences in full is based on envy of the Lord. Just like Prabhupada tells the story of two men speaking about a third friend or acquaintance of theirs who was just appointed Supreme Court judge. So one says to the other, "Did you hear about so-and-so? He was just appointed Supreme Court judge." The other says, "Well, I don't really think that's such a great thing." "What do you mean? There's only a few Supreme Court judges in all of India." "Yeah, but I think he accepted that position with no salary. That's why they chose him." Well, that, of course, is nonsense, right? That's just a sign of their envy. And when someone envies another person, they don't give them any credit at all. So therefore, the worst envious people of Krishna are Mayavadis. And 90, 95, maybe 96% of the gurus in India are Mayavadis. And they're all envious of Krishna. Therefore, how do we know that? What's the proof that they're envious of Krishna? Well, a lot of them claim that they are God. Just like the Pondraka, he sent a message to Krishna in Dwarka. He said, "Why are you imitating me? I am the supreme God. I am Vishnu. So you better stop trying to imitate me, otherwise I'll come and cut your head off." So when Krishna got this message, he just laughed, and he sent a message back. He said that very soon I'm going to come to Benares and cut your head off. So in other words, he's challenging him. So Pondraka, with a massive army of followers, came to meet Krishna and to fight with him. And when Krishna saw Pondraka, he just laughed, because Pondraka was trying to imitate Vishnu, so he pasted on 2 extra arms on his body, just so he could have 4 arms. And it was just ridiculous. The whole thing was completely a sham. So Krishna quickly cut his head off. And he defeated this large army. And not only that, but he went back. He went to Benares and basically, and he also cut the head off of the king of Benares. That was Pondraka's #1 ally. So he goes to Benares and he rolls the head of the king into the city, the main place of the city. And everyone thought that was the head of Krishna. But when they looked at it carefully, they saw it was the head of the king. And they were just shocked, because that whole city was convinced, the whole population was convinced that Pondraka and the king were going to cut off Krishna's head. So these are all envious people. Their whole, and there was only like a few people like that previously, Pondraka, the king of Kashi, and some others. But today, Prabhupada says, there's thousands of people like that. They're all trying to cut off Krishna's head. They're writing books, just like Friedrich Nietzsche wrote a book, God is Dead. And so many Mayavadis, they write books, and they say that the ultimate destination is the impersonal Brahman, and that Vaikuntha and Goloka and Vishnu and the devotees and Vaikuntha and Krishna and Nanda Maharaj, Yasoda, the Gopi, all that is fairy tales. That's Disneyland. has no reality. The only reality is the impersonal Brahman. This is why they are the worst offenders of Krishna, worse than the atheists. They are atheists also, but they're atheists who have a very pronounced envy of Krishna. Therefore, they reject him. And not only they reject him, they say, when your so-called Krishna appears in this material world, he has a material body just like you and me. So there's no end to their blasphemy of Krishna. And these people are the majority of the gurus in India. And they are going around convincing so many people in India to accept that the ultimate state is Brahman state, impersonal state. And that all this Krishna stuff is all fairy tales. So, therefore, Prabhupada says, a devotee should try to restrict the vilifier. It says, quoting from the Markandeya Purana, Jiva Goswami says that one should neither blaspheme the devotee of the Lord nor indulge in hearing others who are engaged in belittling a devotee of the Lord. A devotee should try to restrict the vilifier by cutting out his tongue, and being unable to do so, one should commit suicide rather than hear the blaspheming of the devotee of the Lord. Well, similarly, one should not hear blasphemy of Krishna. But there are other alternatives. When someone is blaspheming Krishna, you should cut their tongue off, or commit suicide, or walk away and never associate with such people again. So I would suggest the third alternative. Therefore, so it seems that belittling the devotee of the Lord is even worse than belittling the Lord, because it says you have two choices: either you cut your tongue out, or you either cut the vilifier's tongue out, or you commit suicide. So therefore, we should be very careful about people who criticize and vilify devotees. And of course, we should be very fierce when someone vilifies Krishna. The conclusion is that one should neither hear nor allow vilification of a devotee of the Lord, as far as distinguishing the Lord's holy name from the names of the demigods. The revealed scriptures disclose that all extraordinarily powerful beings are but parts and parcels of the supreme, energetic Lord Krishna. Except for the Lord himself, everyone is subordinate. No one is independent of the Lord. So we have to cultivate our understanding of Krishna as the unique supreme personality of Godhead. Otherwise, we'll be misled. And when we're misled, we actually waste our human life. Human life is meant for fixing our mind on Krishna, not fixing our mind on making money, not fixing our mind on becoming popular or important or powerful or successful in a material sense. A successful person in a material sense is a sense gratifier. And the more sense gratification they have, people think, the more they are successful. You say. So, but that is actually defeat, because they're going to suffer repeated birth and death in all different species of life. So today, the concept of success, just like I was speaking to one family, and they were concerned about their son. And I said, well, because the son wasn't doing so good academically. So I said, well, why don't you first of all decide what is success? I said, is success that your son will get the highest grades and go to the best colleges and then become highly educated and get a great job and make a lot of money and have a family and a lot of kids and many accolades and prestigious rewards and things like that? Is that what you consider as success? Or do you consider success that your son is honest, clean, self-controlled, a devotee, engaged in devotional service. Also, he may get married and have a nice family. Wife and husband are both devotees. Children grow up to be devotees. What is your concept of success? So people get confused about what is success. And success is explained by Krishna. Tells Arjuna, Tasmat sarve sukale su mam anusmara yudhyacha mayarpita mano buddhir mam evaisasya samsaya. In the 8th chapter he says, success, at all times, Arjuna, think of me and do your duty. With your mind and intelligence fixed on me, surely you will come back to me. So, is that success? Yes, that's what the success is, to be able to fix the mind on Krishna. Abhyasi yogyuktena chetasa nanyagamina paramam purusham divyam yati partana chintayan. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. And Prabhupada says, in this verse, Lord Krishna stresses the importance of remembering him. One's memory of Krishna is revived by chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By this practice of chanting and hearing the sound vibration of the Supreme Lord, one's ear, tongue, and mind are engaged. This mystic meditation is very easy to practice, and it helps one attain the Supreme Lord. Purusham means enjoyer. Although living entities belong to the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord, they are in material contamination. They think themselves enjoyers, but they are not the Supreme Enjoyer. Here it is clearly stated that the Supreme Enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different manifestations and plenary expansions as Narayana, Vasudeva, etc. The devotee can constantly think of the object of worship, the Supreme Lord, in any of his features, Narayana, Krishna, Rama, etc., by chanting Hare Krishna. This practice will purify him, and at the end of his life, due to his constant chanting, he will be transferred to the kingdom of God. Yoga practice is meditation on the supersoul within. Similarly, by chanting Hare Krishna, one fixes his mind always on the Supreme Lord. The mind is fickle, and therefore it is necessary to engage the mind by force to think of Krishna. So this is Prabhupada explaining what is success. Success is being able to fix the mind on Krishna 24 hours a day throughout your whole life. And at the moment of death, to remember Krishna and go back to Godhead. So unless we understand what is success, we'll mislead ourselves, our children, our relatives, everybody. And we'll be no better than the Mayavadis. The Mayavadis mislead people by thinking the highest perfection is the impersonal Brahman. And other people mislead themselves and their children by saying the highest perfection is coming to America and being appointed by Mr. Joe Biden in an important position in the government of the United States. Just like now, Biden yesterday said, the Indians are taking over the American government. He said, Kamala Harris, the vice president, is Indian. And so-and-so Mohan, what is it, Satyam Mohan or something like that, she is just appointed to this position. He went through a list of 50 Indian men and women who have been appointed to high positions in the government. Is that success? Let's think about it carefully. Right? The real successful people, you don't hear about them. They're the ones who are humble. They are chanting Hare Krishna. Now, maybe one of those 50 Indians are, some of them are Sri Vaishnavas also, or Iyengars. But are they actually devotees? Success means you become a devotee, sincere devotee, and you engage in humble and persistent or continual service to the Lord, and always remember the Lord and help others become Krishna conscious. That is success. And therefore Krishna says that no one more dear to me than he or she who explains Bhagavad Gita to others, other devotees. because Bhagavad Gita is a subject for devotees, not for karmis. Of course, devotees take the risk of preaching to the karmis to make them devotees. And that's therefore, in a sense, the devotee is more merciful than the Lord. Okay, so we want to clearly understand what is success. Otherwise, we're going to mislead ourselves and mislead our family members and anybody we meet. And also, ultimate success, savai pumsa paro dharmo yata bhaktira hoksije haitukiya pratihata yayat master prasidati. The highest perfection of dharma, or all prescribed duties, is to attain pure love of Krishna. So, only in Krishna consciousness, in the literature, in the Srimad Bhagvatam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and the literature of the Goswamis, is this highest pinnacle of love of God explained, and how to attain it practically in this lifetime. So we've been carrying on with that subject, and I'll continue now. So we were talking about the action of Yoga Maya in the spiritual world. And it says, in the spiritual loving sentiment induced by the Yoga Maya potency, both Lord Krishna and the damsels of Vraja forget themselves in spiritual rupture. We mentioned this yesterday. By influence of such forgetfulness, the attractive beauty of the gopis plays a prominent part in the transcendental satisfaction of the Lord, who has nothing to do with mundane sex. Because spiritual love of Godhead is above everything mundane, the gopis superficially seem to transgress the codes of mundane morality. This perpetually puzzles mundane moralists. Therefore, Yogamaya acts to cover the Lord and his pastimes from the eyes of mundaners, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7.25. 7.25 says, Krishna says, Naham praksa sarvasya yogamaya samanvritaha mudoyam na bijananti mam ebyam param avyayam. So he says that he constantly puts the persons who are not devotee into illusion, and he does not reveal himself to such people. I am never manifested foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. So that's why it says here that the loving affairs described in the Bhagavatam of Krishna and the gopis perpetually puzzles mundane moralists. Just like I met a lady once, an Indian lady. She said, I don't want my kids to hear about Krishna, because Krishna is an immoral person, dancing with other people's wives at night. The wives leave their children and their husbands. This is not proper. I don't want my kids to hear about Krishna. I want them to hear about Rama. He was loyal to one wife. So this is the type of nonsense that they speak, because they don't hear the explanation of devotees. They hear explanations of demons who are envious of Krishna and not capable of explaining the transcendental nature of his pastimes. So we have to hear this from Prabhupada, and who's basically repeating what the Goswamis have chronicled in vast Vaishnava literature. In fact, we should be fortunate to one day want to read the books of the Goswamis. We're not ready for them yet, but we get an inkling of what they've written by reading Prabhupada's books. And Prabhupada has given the gist of everything they have written. So therefore it says, therefore Yogamaya acts to cover the Lord and his pastimes from the eyes of mundaners, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7.25, where the Lord says that he reserves the right of not being exposed to everyone. The acts of Yogamaya make it possible for the Lord and the gopis, in loving ecstasy, to sometimes meet and sometimes separate. These transcendental loving affairs of the Lord are unimaginable to empiricists. Those are the people that say that only reality is what you can see. It's matter. There's no other reality outside of matter. They're the empiricists. and is unimaginable to the empiricist involved in the impersonal feature of the absolute truth. Therefore, the Lord himself appears before the mundaners to bestow upon them the highest form of spiritual realization. So Krishna appears in this world, and he's there for everyone to see. And also the Bhagavatam has chronicled everything he's done, or most of the things he did in his earthly pastimes. This is Krishna's mercy for mundane people, so that they can have a taste of the highest form of spiritual realization, which is pure love of Krishna, and also personally relish its essence. The Lord is so merciful that he himself descends to take the fallen souls back home to the kingdom of Godhead, where the erotic principles of Godhead are eternally relished in their real form. The real erotic principles, no sex involved, no mundane sex involved, as experienced in this world. And this is distinct from the perverted sexual love so much adored and indulged in by the fallen souls in their diseased condition. The reason the Lord displays the Rasa Lila is especially to induce all the fallen souls to give up their diseased morality and religiosity, and to attract them to the kingdom of God to enjoy the reality. A person who actually understands what the Rasa Lila is will certainly hate to indulge in mundane sex life. For the realized soul, hearing the Lord's Rasa Lila through the proper channel will result in complete abstinence from the material sexual pleasure. Well, right there, you suddenly eliminated 99% of the population. If they hear this, that they'll lose their attraction to mundane sex. Oh, no, I don't want to hear anymore, right? Because they think that this is the highest pleasure. But Krishna has come and manifested his transcendental pastime to show that there's a much higher pleasure that's not even comparable to mundane sense gratification. Much, much higher. But one must follow the prescriptions of sadhana bhakti to be able to access this much higher level of what you would call raganuga bhakti, or spontaneous love for Krishna. And it cannot be attained, as the International Society for Divine Love says, immediately. They'll say, wow, you don't have to go through sadhana bhakti. You just come to us, we'll give you raganuga bhakti right away. But that, of course, is nonsense. And their gurus, beginning with Kripalu Maharaj and then this Keshava Swami, they're all criminals that abuse women, that devotees. So we should not think that there's something cheap about being Krishna conscious. Krishna conscious is the highest perfection of human life, and it requires the most serious persons to take it as the acharyas have given it to us, not as these upstart nonsense people cheapen it. So then, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila 431, Lord Chaitanya is explaining, pure attachment will unite us, even at the expense of moral and religious duties, or dharma. Destiny will sometimes bring us together and sometimes separate us. So it's talking about the relationship, or this is Krishna's relationship with the gopis. They have to even give up mundane morality and religious duties. So this is a big subject now. Diseased morality and religiosity. Now Prabhupada is going to explain what these two things are. The diseased morality and religiosity. The gopis came out to meet Krishna in the dead of night when they heard the sound of his flute. Srila Rupa Goswami has accordingly composed a nice verse. See Adi Lila 5:224. Well, that's a really beautiful verse. It says, my dear friend, if you are indeed attached to your worldly friends, do not look at the smiling face of Lord Govinda as he stands on the bank of the Yamuna at Keshigata, casting sidelong glances. he places his flute to his lips, which seem like newly blossomed twigs. His transcendental body, bending in 3 places, appears very bright in the moonlight. So in other words, if you're still attached to sense gratification, don't go to Keshi at night and see Krishna holding his flute and calling the gopis. Don't do it, because you lose your taste for sense gratification. But if you're disgusted with sense gratification, then you will be very, very anxious to see Krishna holding and playing his flute on the bank of the Yamuna. This is a verse quoted from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-239 in connection with practical devotional service. Generally, people in their conditioned life engage in the pleasure of society, friendship, and love. This so-called love is lust, not love. But people are satisfied with such a false understanding of love. Vidyapati, a great and learned poet of Mithila, has said that the pleasure derived from friendship, society, and family life in the material world is like a drop of water in the desert. But our hearts desire pleasure like an ocean. Thus, the heart is compared to a desert of material existence that requires the water of an ocean of pleasure to satisfy its dryness. If there is a drop of water in the desert, one may indeed say that it is water, but such a minute quantity of water has no value. Similarly, in this material world, no one is satisfied in the dealings of society, friendship, and love. Now that's a very interesting point. Prabhupada is saying, in this world, no one is satisfied in the dealings of society, friendship, and love. Therefore, if one wants to derive real pleasure within his heart, he must seek the lotus feet of Govinda. In this verse, Rupa Goswami indicates that if one wants to be satisfied in the pleasure of society, friendship, and love, he need not seek shelter at the lotus feet of Govinda. For if one takes shelter under his lotus feet, he will forget the minute quantity of so-called pleasure in the material world. One who is not satisfied with that so-called pleasure may seek the lotus feet of Govinda, who stands on the shore of the Yamuna at Keshi Tirtha or Keshi Gata in Vrindavana and attracts all the gopis to his transcendental loving service. Well, that Keshi Gata is still there. You can go and see it. And Yamuna ji is still there. You can go and see her. And Krishna is still there. But you might not see him, or we might not see him, as long as we have attachment to sense gratification. But as soon as we lose that this attachment to sense gratification, a whole new world appears before our eyes and in our mind. And that's Vaikuntha or Goloka. But we have to want it. See? We have to be greedy. Greed is a very bad thing, but when you're greedy for Krishna Katha, that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. But when you're greedy for money, that's a very bad thing. So then it says, Adi Lila 5-25, without a doubt, Krishna is directly the son of the king of Raja. Only a fool considers him a statue. In other words, if you see the murti of Krishna and you think it's just a statue, that's very offensive. And now we're going to hear why. And Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 5:26. For that offense of thinking that the deity of Krishna is just a statue, he cannot be liberated. Rather, he will fall into a terrible hellish condition. What more should I say? In his Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami has stated that those who are actually very serious about devotional service do not differentiate between the form of the Lord made of clay, metal, stone, or wood, and the original form of the Lord. In the material world, a person and his photograph, picture, or statue are different. But the statue of Lord Krishna and Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are not different. Because the Lord is absolute, What we call stone, wood, and metal are energies of the Supreme Lord, and energies are never separate from the energetic. As we have several times explained, no one can separate the sunshine energy from the energetic sun. Therefore, material energy may appear separate from the Lord, but transcendentally it is non-different from the Lord. The Lord can appear anywhere and everywhere because his diverse energies are distributed everywhere like sunshine. We should therefore understand whatever we see to be the energy of the Supreme Lord, and we should therefore understand whatever we see is the energy of the Supreme Lord, and should not differentiate between the Lord and his archa form or deity made from clay, metal, wood, or paint. Even if one has not developed this consciousness, one should accept it theoretically from the instructions of the spiritual master, and should worship the Archa Murti, or the form of the Lord in the temple, as non-different from the Lord. The Padma Purana specifically mentions that anyone who thinks the form of the Lord in the temple to be made of wood, stone, or metal is certainly in a hellish condition. Impersonalists are against the worship of the Lord's form in the temple, and there is even a group of people who pass as Hindus, but condemn such worship. Do you know who they are? Called the Arya Samaj, or also known as the Arya Hodgepodge. They reject deity worship. They say it's nonsense. You should only study the Vedas, and to do that you have to learn Sanskrit, learn grammar, learn context, learn this, learn that. That of course takes 12 to 20 years. And then you should do Agnihotram in the morning and the evening and recite the mantras. You have to learn how to say them correctly. That takes another bunch of years, and so forth. Of course, that would eliminate, well, at least 99% of the population of the world, right? Who's going to do all that? So Prabhupada didn't say that. He said, just chant Hare Krishna. That's because Lord Chaitanya said also, my guru considered that I am a fool, and I cannot understand Vedanta, although Lord Chaitanya proved that he knows Vedanta better than anybody else, right? However, and therefore my guru suggested that I always chant and dance. So this dancing is also extremely important. Chanting, dancing, and feasting on prasadam, all these things are important. And then Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and repeating Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagvatam. Then you can easily become Krishna conscious. So the Padma Purana specifically mentions that anyone who thinks the form of the Lord in a temple to be made of wood, stone, or metal is certainly in a hellish condition. Impersonalists are against the worship of the Lord's form in the temple, and there is even a group of people who pass as Hindus but condemn such worship. Their so-called acceptance of the Vedas has no meaning. In other words, their whole thing about studying the Vedas has no meaning. For all the acharyas, even the impersonalist Sankaracharya, have recommended the worship of the transcendental form of the Lord. Impersonalists like Sankaracharya recommend the worship of 5 forms known as Panchopasana, which includes Lord Vishnu. Vaishnavas, however, worship the forms of Lord Vishnu in his varied manifestations, such as Radha Krishna, Lakshmi Narayana, Sita Rama, Rukmini Krishna. Mayavadis admit that worship of the Lord's form is required in the beginning, but they think that in the end everything is impersonal. Therefore, since they are ultimately against worship of the Lord's form, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has described them as offenders. Srimad Bhagvatam has condemned those who think the body to be the self as Boma Ijyadi. Boma means earth, and Ijyadi means worshipper. There are 2 kinds of Boma Ijyadi. Those who worship the land of their birth, such as the nationalists, who make many sacrifices for the motherland. So in other words, like the RSS, they pay allegiance to the flag of India. And they chant Mande Mataram. In other words, they're worshiping Bhumi Devi as like a supreme deity. So these things are called Boma Ijyadi. those who worship the land of their birth, such as nationalists who make many sacrifices for the motherland, and those who condemn the worship of the form of the Lord. Well, that's the Arya so-called Samaj, and that is the Mayavadis, who ultimately reject worship of the deity. Just like one person came here, he used to be like a devotee. He would come regularly, he would donate to the temple. Then I didn't see him for about 2 years. And then one day he came to the temple. So I said, Prabhu, where have you been? He said, I found something higher than this Krishna consciousness. I said, really? He said, yeah, your guru hasn't given you the highest thing. I found a guru who gives the highest thing. I said, what is that? He said, I can also dance with the gopis. I said, really? When is that going to happen? Well, it's going to happen in the Satya Yuga. I'll be up there, you know. So I said, look, this is complete nonsense. What you said. No, don't say that. What you're doing is for beginners. I have gone to the higher stage. I said, yeah, the higher stage of ignorance. I said, he said, no, this worship of the deity, it's just for the beginners. It's for people like you that don't know the higher stage. I said, Prabhu, you've been cheated by a bigger cheater than you are. The cheaters are attracted to cheaters, you understand? So the little cheater becomes attracted to the bigger cheater. He said, no, I don't want to hear any more of this. I'm not going to come here anymore. I said, good, don't come here anymore and talk nonsense. You know. Well, he keeps coming, though, every once in a while. You know. So, yeah, they're being cheated, you know. And who are these cheaters? The Brahma Kumaris. They're big cheaters. They reject Krishna. Anyway, that's another story. So, this Boma Ijyadi, they condemn the worship, either they worship the land of birth or they condemn the worship of the Lord. One should not worship the planet Earth or land of his birth, nor should one condemn the form of the Lord, which is manifested in metal or wood for our facility. Material things are also the energy of the Supreme Lord. Okay, so should we hear this? Yes, because we should know the cheaters who are preaching diseased morality and religiosity. So now we're going to hear more about that. But we'll hear that tomorrow because it's getting late. Are there any questions? I know it's a lot of information at one time. But this is Krishna consciousness, and Prabhupada has taken all the trouble to write all these very, very delicate, subtle points and make them very clear and understandable and easy to read English. So we have to appreciate it. We shouldn't think, oh, this is not for me. This is for us. He went to all this trouble so that you could understand what is real religiosity, what is real morality, what is real Krishna consciousness, as opposed to all the phony stuff that's being presented today all over India and all over the world now. Okay, well, glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Haribol.